Scandi knives are one of those things to me that are sort of a love-hate, if you will. But I don't blame the grind as much usually, rather than maybe the maker. And there's some pros and cons with any tool that you're going to carry, especially your knife. And you try to limit any extremes. All right. Usually, you want a knife on you when you're out in the field that's going to be good at general tasks. Excel at general tasks. It may cut a piece of hard pepperoni and some cheese. It will make your tent pegs. It can split some of your kindling. And it can quarter game. Usually that right there would be something I would want my knife to do. Excuse me. Peel sticks. Do I look at my belt knife as something maybe that should be able to perform a tri-stick, lickety split? Not generally, no. So the Scandi grind is predominantly a woodworking grind. And you get a very short grind. In short, I'm meaning here, if I can find I have a pencil somewhere here, I'd be able to point a little bit easier for you. Maybe this here will work. You can see the grind starts here. So it's very short, quarter inch, we'll just say, before you reach full stock thickness. And geometry determines the functionality of the heat treatment of the steel. So geometry is the first thing we need working in our favor with this tool. And this tool is an excellent Scandi grind. In my opinion, I would not want my Scandi grinds to get any thicker than this Mora. This is I believe this is the Mora Classic 1. I always get the 1 and the 2 confused, but I'm pretty sure this is a 1. It's the smaller version, if you will. And this is the same thickness. This is a Mora Craftline 511, I believe. I don't want my Scandi grind getting any thicker than this. Even at this thickness here, it is noticeable cutting anything where you're not just limited to shallow cuts, where you have to use more of your blade, thicker media. Anyone knows doing carrots and potatoes, especially out in the field, can be quite tricky with a Scandi grind that's even this thick. Let alone, this is the thickest one that I own. This is a Woodlore clone. And I should state that I don't blame the maker, because the maker is just making what the customer wants. And this is what I wanted. And it is a fantastic knife in its scope. I don't carry it much. I know that it will do anything in reality. I have done, I think I've said, creek chubs with this knife. Now, it's all shallow cutting, so you don't really notice, any resistance. But this knife here is very thick. This is 5/32. This is a very thick Scandinavian ground knife. So thick that it's even, at this thickness, I don't think it works wood that easy either. The only thing that this really excels beyond the other Scandis that I have that I'll show you today, the thing that this really excels at is in splitting wood, batoning wood. That's the one thing that when you're getting this thick, that it beats out the other knives in its class, the other Scandinavian grind knives. This one here is, I think, was it, what do they call it? 9/64ths, I believe. And so this is thinner than the Woodlore clone. This is the Spyderco Bushcraft. Now, there are two differences in this, and one of them being that the Woodlore clone is thicker in overall stock, but its grind is also lower. So it performs very different from the Spyderco. Now, the Spyderco is still a very stout knife, but its grind is higher. And I got to tell you, it is noticeably easier to cut certain things with this knife as opposed to the Woodlore clone. And if I had to say in terms of using, ease of use, I got to hand it to Spyderco. To each his own, obviously, but for a thick stock, this grind is really, really nice. Then we have an 1/8 of an inch thick knife. This is the Mora Bushcraft Black. And this is very thick too for a Scandi. Not as thick as the Spyderco Bushcraft, but still very thick. And like I said, it's noticeable. Even in wood, I find it's noticeable compared to the thinner Scandis. Now, here is a Marttini Arctic puukko, Arctic Circle puukko, Arctic puukko. And this is as thick as the Mora Classic 2. But this grind is higher than on the Mora Classic 2. So this performs different, even though they're the same stock thickness. This knife is very nice. You get the stock thickness, but you get a slightly higher grind, or at least I did. I know that things can vary. So I do have a Mora Classic 2, but right now it's in the midst of getting a new handle put on it. But the Mora Classic 1 is thinner. So out of all the Scandis that I've shown you, I go for these thinner ones, which happen to be these two right here. And really not much this at all. More so this knife right here. This is a good solid knife. So you're going to have pros and cons, like I said, with any grind, with any blade shape, with any size. Okay, there's pros and cons with everything. There's pros to a larger knife, there's cons to it. And it goes the same with these Scandinavian grind knives. So it depends what you're going to carry in your kit and how else you function. If it's a one-tool option, you know, that's on you. That's your decision, what you want your one tool to be. I would say if I have one tool, I'm gonna want it a little bit thicker. But I don't carry one tool. And I always have a jackknife on me. So because I carry a jackknife, a lot of times I don't feel the need to have anything like this as my main knife. If anything, I've got to say for myself personally, a large case Stockman like this serves me better than a smaller, Mora knife like I've showed you. Now it serves me better than this because I have other tools. So for a smaller knife, I'll take this. This slices apples, makes feather sticks, peels wood, you name it. This will do game all day long, and food prep, and it's actually far easier. And it's very easy to maintain with the hollow grind, full height hollow grind. So, I'm maintaining small bevels, excellent razor sharp knife. So this takes the place for that for me. And generally I'll go for another grind. But in terms of the Scandi grind, its pluses are the fact that it really planes wood nicely. And almost all of them have comfortable handles. That is one of the, things it seems like with the makers of these style knives is the handle is made for comfort. And that's very important. So at the end of the day, you get knives these are some of the most comfortable knives I own to use. You can work with these knives all day long. They are very, very comfortable in use. And in that instance, they really excel. They are excellent using knives that plane wood very, very nicely. Baton and bore into wood very nicely as well. If you're hesitant on buying a Scandinavian ground knife, don't be. You can get into them for very, very cheap. And you may find, like I did, that I actually prefer them in this configuration. Inexpensive knives. Of quality, though. They're of quality. You could pretty much buy, probably 14 of these to one of these. So if you're doing something where maybe you're traveling to do some hunting or do some bushcrafting, and your belongings have to go on a plane, and sometimes luggage gets lost or different things like that, having knives like these, I still cherish these just as I do any other knife. I'm not careless and try to break them or even lose them or anything like that. But in the event that you did, it's very easy to pack several of these in a couple different items, things for luggage. And you may even find these depending on where you're going. So they can be found. They are popping up more and more and more. And Mora and Mora and Mora. And, so in the past, from my understanding, knives like this were not, very popular at all in American, woodsmanship. Recently, they have gotten quite popular. Probably, I would say, since starting maybe in the early 90s. Mid-90s is when a lot of these knives started catching the attention of more of your common man outdoorsman. And they are very unique. A lot of people like them for that bevel because of its ease of sharpening. You lay it flat, take it up till you meet the bevel, and that's how you sharpen these knives. They're very easy. A novice can sharpen one of these easier. It does take a while. You do have to remove a lot of metal, which is another con of this style. You're removing all this steel right here. So if you have something that's perhaps diamond impregnated, type of stone, or it's impregnated with whatever grit it has, this will wear it out a lot quicker. Your pocket stone, your or rods, things like that. This will wear that out quicker because you're sharpening that much steel every time. Every time. Now, you can do things, which I know some cultures have done and do, is they have pretty much a zero grind on here. Okay, meaning that there's no micro bevel. It's pretty much going right down. And then to do game, they will quickly throw a micro bevel on there, which is just all you got to do is just increase the angle. And that can work out better for working around bone and working in, with meat and things like that. And then when they want to go back to woodworking, they pretty much just take that micro bevel right off. So they're not afraid to use their knife as a tool and sharpen it. And you can operate in that fashion. And it works much better with these thinner knives. And that's another reason why I favor the thinner, is the field sharpening aspect. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Take care.